We take you on a journey across Korea to a town where a father is set to bring his daughter to her mother. The father and the daughter have grown apart over the many years. The father works all day, all the time, at his hedge fund firm, but has spent little time investing in quality time with his daughter. They board a train to venture to the daughter's mother, and as they journey across the country, the man ponders how he can become closer to his daughter. We hear a crash from the back of the train, and of all things the man thought that would bring him closer to his daughter was a zombie invasion on his train to Busan. This is It Records. Bow, 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 bow. Oh, great. I'm glad we're working in more sound effects as...
It's all about presentation.
Yeah, Michael Winslow was a big inspiration for me. That's how great I am at sound effects.
Michael Winslow?
Yeah, the guy from Spaceballs and who did the remember he's like does the creeps? Boop 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 boop. I think he's on it's a police academy, I think.
Maybe. 80s movies? Big in
Yeah,
the 80s?
80s stuff.
Okay. Interesting. That's where you draw your inspiration from. It's good.
Yes.
Good to know. Well, great. Thank you one and all for tuning in once again to the beloved It Records podcast. The one and only. I am Matt Johnson. I have
Critically
emerged
acclaimed.
from the shadows. Critically acclaimed now, yes, actually.
Yeah, because how many stars can you get on 0 reviews?
That's the real question.
That's
pretty good.
It's off the charts, really. I mean,
It's true.
we are technically off the charts, so...
Off the grid.
That's our marketing plug.
That's our marketing plug. Yeah. Yes, that is my shtick. And also, we did Train to Busan this week. The 2016 South Korean zombie film is, if you couldn't pick that up from the intro, where I literally said Train to Busan. But if you've never heard of it, it is on Netflix to watch as of this taping. And the film mostly takes place on a train to Busan as a zombie apocalypse suddenly breaks out in the country and threatens the safety of the passengers. So kind of just starting into the movie, we see a man, he's a divorced fund manager, workaholic, we kind of see that, and absentee father to his young daughter. And yeah, as we said, he's a big workaholic, misses his daughter's singing recital at the beginning, and he really tries to make it up to her, and it's her also her birthday coming up. So he basically enlists the help of his assistant, I believe, to get her a present. So the assistant buys a Wii, the gaming system, and...
A Wii U, thank you.
Is it a Wii U?
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. I stand corrected. So yes, he purchases this Wii U. We get this really good shot that shows the daughter not really even saying anything, but she kind of glances from her dad over to where her TV stand, entertainment stand is, and you see she already has one, and it seems like a gift her dad's already given her. He's just neglectful, forgetful. Really isn't investing any time in her. So for her birthday, instead of being with her dad, she wants to go see her mother, who lives in Busan. So the next day, they get on this train at the Seoul station and are going to go to Busan, where we are introduced to some other passengers, including a man and his pregnant wife, a high school baseball team, and then also 2 elderly sisters who are all kind of getting on this train and going to Busan together. Where as the train departs, a young woman we see runs on the train unnoticed, and something looks off about her as well. And I would say that's really kind of the start of the movie, before we kind of launch into Act 2. I don't know if you guys would agree.
Yeah.
And before we kind of go into Act 2, I was gonna ask you guys: Have you seen Parasite, the Korean movie that just won Best Picture?
Yes, I have.
No, but I know people who have.
Okay.
That's
Well,
like that's like kind of saying it, right?
yeah.
You could rent it on Amazon. That's how I did it. Hey, Wednesday, be quiet. Shh.
I didn't know it was on Amazon yet. I know it's still. They probably put it back in theaters because of
They did.
it won
Yeah.
Best Picture.
I don't think they expected it to do as well as it did because it was like ready to rent like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like before the Oscars even like happened, it was like ready to rent. It's like out on like Blu-ray too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I have seen it.
And this is not the first Korean movie we've done either. We've done Tale of Two Sisters, I believe, is the other one we did.
That is correct. Yes, and I think that's the only two we've done.
Yeah,
But
I think so.
I brought up Parasite not just because it's a South Korean film and Parasite just won Best Picture, but the actor, I believe his name is Woo Si Choi, who plays one of the baseball players, was in Parasite. So he's also in this film.
Who's he in Parasite? Is he the son?
Yeah, the main son. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. That's cool.
Yeah, as I was watching this, I thought to myself, I went, that guy looks really familiar. Where have I seen him before? And then I had to like parse my brain. How many South Korean movies am I really watching on a daily basis? And Parasite came to the forefront after a while.
I mean, I feel like I've only seen like I think 10 is too high. Probably like 7.
Yeah,
There's like
I
Old
haven't
Boy,
seen too many.
Host.
Is, as we mentioned, Tale of Two Sisters, Host, is, let's see, is Okja considered in Snowpiercer?
Yeah.
Are those, they're not South Korean, would you say? They
Yeah,
are?
I mean-
Because it's the same director.
Yeah, I would because I believe it was even
I've seen
though
those.
Snowpiercer's got Chris Evans in it, but I think that was like a South Korean company. And Okja,
Okay.
I would also consider that. Yeah, I would count that. Unless they were made in through American cinema, like movie. I can't even think of the word right now. Fucking studios, which I don't think they were. But anyway, second act of Train to Busan. Do you know how long the train is to Seoul and train to Busan? I just looked it up actually. Remember, South Korea is not as big as you think it is.
No,
It's
I
only
mean,
3
it can't be,
hours.
because, like, yeah.
It's only 3 hours.
Because Korea is not that big in and of itself, and then
No.
it's split into North and South.
Yeah, like that's like us. Well, I guess it's not like driving to Bloomington, but it's like driving an hour past Bloomington. From where, at least, not anymore for you, Matt, but where you used to be. But I would say the big meat and potatoes of this movie is just them like the outbreak happens fairly quickly. Like they waste no time. I feel like it happens like 20 minutes in the movie. It's like fully spreading, and they do it. It does fast. Like it's like fast moving zombies, and there's something interesting about them, but that comes out a little later. And I really like how visceral, like, the transformation is, and how, like, I don't know, these, like, zombies move in, like, a horde-like fashion. They all kind of move as one, I would say. And then I think the end of, like, the second act, I would say, besides them, like, hopping from, like, station to station. Would you consider, like, when they go to the first stop, the end of Act 2, where the dad... No, you wouldn't count that as the end of the second act, where they have the fight at the train station, and then it was, like, all those military guys there that are infected. Would that be the transition to the next act, you think? Would you guys consider that the end of the second act, like the first station? Or would you go a little further?
So, by that point, are we at, like, where they're trying to isolate themselves back on the train from those who have been infected?
Yeah, because, like, when they get back into the station, there's, like, mainly two groups of people that are in the train. Like, there's, like, where everyone is, like, that have secluded themselves, and then there's, like, our main guy trying to get back to his daughter with, like, the big guy who turns out to be a fucking badass.
Yes. Okay, yeah. There's kind of, at that point, there's this turning point where there's two sisters, right? And one of them gets attacked and infected, and the other that's left, that's still, healthy or, hasn't been attacked, she's so saddened by this, because once somebody, like, is attacked, like, they're gone, like, there's no hope. And so they're all trying to barricade themselves from, the zombies that have made it onto this train. And what does she do? She deliberately opens the door to let them all in, because there's no, like, to her, life was not living without her sister. So all those people get attacked. So going into the third act, help me fill any blanks, and if I miss them. But the majority of the people that we've met at this point have fallen victim to the growing number of zombies. So going toward the end, we've got the pregnant wife. Her husband has been infected at this point, so they had to leave him behind. Then we've got the main father and the daughter remaining that escaped to the train, only for the father to get attacked at the very last minute by one of the zombies. And
don't forget about that homeless guy.
Okay. What happened with him?
He, like, just sacrificed himself when the train flipped over so they could get away.
The homeless guy?
The homeless guy did that, yeah.
Okay. And then the father actually ends up doing the same thing, and it kind of really, like, tugs at your heartstrings with this one, because, like, the father and the daughter were kind of trying to, I think, throughout this journey, kind of mend their broken relationship. And, like, the tears, like, when this, like, little girl, like, when her dad gets infected, like, it is heartbreaking. Like, I have not seen horror movie that has made me want to cry so much until this one. But he actually sacrifices himself, for the pregnant wife and his little girl. And so that's super sad by the end, because they almost made it. And so it's the two that are left, and they arrive at Busan. And they're, like, walking in this tunnel where snipers are, like, secretly watching them, and they're, like, ready to shoot them because they don't know if they've been infected by the outbreak. But then they hear, like, the little girl singing the song that she wanted to sing for her father at the beginning of the movie, but it was at the recital that he didn't make it to. And I guess that makes them realize, like, they're good, they're not infected. But, yeah, so that's where the movie ends.
That part get you?
You have no idea.
Yeah, this movie moves very quickly. Like I feel like shit like hits the fan, and it just keeps on like elevating, like how fucked up everything can get, very well. Like I think it just like progresses in a very like way that makes sense, and I don't know. Like it was a thrill ride for sure. It was like just like nonstop action. I would almost say.
Yeah, it starts kind of how we described, where it's just a setup between this father and daughter relationship. They get on the train, and we see that one person who seems to be infected in some way kind of stumble on the train, and as someone tries to help her and assist her, she bites the person, and you can kind of see it in her eyes that there's something off with her. Um, and from there, it's just like you immediately become pretty much essentially. It doesn't take long for the virus to infect your body or whatever it is before you become a zombie, and it's just basically nonstop action, as you said, of moving down the train. Like the zombies started at one end, and they're just trying to make their way down to the other end, and people are shuffling out of the way. Um, to which I guess, since we've been talking about the zombies and the whole premise of the movie is to get to Busan and avoid these zombies on the train, is that this outbreak occurs. This is a zombie movie, I would say, but um, I would just ask your guys' opinion. What were your overall thoughts on, well, I guess, if these are zombies in your opinion, and if they are, like, what did you think of their depiction of zombies? Did you like this version compared to others you've seen?
Yeah, I did like it. I liked it a lot. I would say they're pretty comparable to like uh, traditional zombies. They take some liberties with like how fast the progression is, because like the dad was like really slow, and like there'd be other people that'd be like done in like 2 seconds. And you didn't even mention this fucking business guy that is horrible, and I hate him so much. Then you're glad that he dies, but you feel a little bad at him at the end because he's just trying to get to his mom or whatever. But you're just like, no, you're still a shitty person.
Are you talking about the one that wouldn't let the others on?
Yeah, and he like he had that like train guy with him in the bathroom. They survived like the onslaught of like the final car, and he sacrifices him to get away.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, he sucks. He's the
Yeah.
worst.
No, I mean, I think that these zombies, I also liked, how they, like, there were lots of gore, lots of violence, but I also didn't think it was too much. Yeah, I mean, I think that they forced characters to make decisions that they normally wouldn't. Like with the example of the sister opening that door and letting them all in after her sister had already been attacked and infected. So, to me, that's like truly terrifying, is being forced or making a decision you normally wouldn't because of the circumstances, because of these zombies.
Yeah, it does seem that this came out in 2016, I believe I said, and I think like 28 Days Later by Danny Boyle came out a few years before that, definitely.
Oh yeah.
But like World War Z is close to this time, actually probably a little before as well. But that's sort of the vein I think that zombies have taken on nowadays, is like they are quicker. They move in those spastic movements. Like I feel like they're like really jerky, and like kind of like they're always like twitching almost in this movie. And a lot of the more new zombie ones have done this. Um, Compared to, for instance, I was going to bring this up, Pete, like Night of the Living Dead, which is one of the few podcasts that was recorded but is yet to air. Originally, you and I recorded that one a long time ago at this point, where the
Yeah.
zombies in those films, one of the first zombies films, were slow moving, slow moving zombies. They were just like barely there. They feasted on flesh and they were trying to attack the house, but nowhere near the aggression that we see in more modern zombies.
Yeah, zombies have been around for a while, and they had to do something to them to make them more interesting.
Do you think in this movie was there anything in particular that they added to the lore that was maybe a little different than you'd seen?
I don't think they really added too much. I think they just did it well. They just like took what was established and just had really good execution. I would say the only thing they did that was like pretty similar to World War Z that did it a few years earlier, but like these zombies looked better because World War Z was all CGI zombies that moved in like a horde. I believe it seemed like a lot of this was mainly like practical makeup, maybe some scenes of CGI, but it wasn't too noticeable. Maybe like the train crash would like looked a little weird, but like I would say it mostly looked really good, and like the way like when all the zombies like were like dragging on the train, like slowing it down, like that part was really cool.
Yeah.
And like I think done really well. That's like the only thing I would say that's like different is like how their horde mentality is.
Yeah. That's a good point. I thought what was kind of interesting was, and I don't think they really expanded on it at all, was they started to figure out how they worked, how the zombies.
Yeah.
They couldn't. They figured out that they really couldn't open the doors. They couldn't understand how to open doors. So if they shut a door, the zombies couldn't get through. And if they couldn't see you, they weren't as aggressive. So they put like newspaper on the glass. So if they can't see you, they're not as aggressive. They can't open doors or anything, and they're really driven by sound. Like because when they went in the tunnel, they like freaked out.
Yeah, and they're very docile when it's dark out. Like they're almost like immobile.
Yeah.
I guess that probably is with sight, but like it just seemed like in total darkness, it just seemed like they were like almost like hibernating almost.
Yeah. And they never really expanded on that or really gave you a reason why these zombies really were around, right? Those are just things you picked on.
Not
Yeah.
much backstory at all.
They had a little smidge where the assistant calls the dad and he's like, "Oh, like did we do this? Like were you responsible for this?" They don't really go into super amount of detail of like what they did, but you get like some kind of shenanigans that they are up to, probably with some kind of chemicals, because you see that in the beginning with like the military like reacting to something. So the hedge fund probably like had these materials, I would assume, and probably disposed of them in a legal fashion. I would assume that, and that's why thing got spreaded so quickly.
Okay.
That's what I at least assume.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because if we get that opening scene where the deer gets hit and comes back to life, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's probably something chemical based, a virus that makes people act like this. Okay. So before I get maybe into like the horror significance, which you've kind of talked about, it's a zombie film. That's 100% the subgenre. Do you guys have a favorite character? It was a lot of character driven in this film. I feel like a lot of zombie ones are, where you put a bunch of different characters into one room that are kind of different walks of life that have to work together. Which ones stood out to you?
I like the big guy, the big strong guy. He's just so great.
Yeah,
He's just
kinda
like
funny.
Yeah, he was funny, and then he was just like, he's just a strong guy. He's just protecting everyone, being a badass, and I was like, this guy's great.
Yeah. For me, it was the young girl. Like, she had such a, like, big, kind heart, and I felt like she was so mature because she's, like, what, 8? And she was like truly wise beyond her years. Like she's the one telling her father, "Hey, like you only think of yourself," and like that cuts deep. But yeah, I felt like it was very easy to empathize with her and her situation even before all of this like chaos broke out. So I don't know like anybody's name, but yeah, it was definitely her as far as my favorite. So what about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think for me, I really like the daughter, the young girl a lot. I thought, as you said, she was like very compassionate and understanding more than her dad was. Especially, she was nice to the homeless man she saw get on, and wanted to be nice to him, where her dad was kind of shooing him away. In the end, the homeless guy, sacrificed himself for the girl and the father. Um, and I also I enjoyed the pregnant woman who was the wife of the big
Yeah.
bodybuilder guy. That I thought I liked their dynamic. I think a lot though, the bodybuilder guy and the his wife.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Um,
a good combo for sure.
and you could kind of see that the young daughter kind of gravitating. I felt like towards them, or they just seemed to be more caring and like towards one another and towards the girl than even her dad was being to her on the train. Um, and maybe she was
Yeah.
kind of wanting that sort
Yeah,
of
like
father mother relationship.
she saw like yeah, she saw like parents and like she's like, "Oh, like I want that. Like of mom and dad together that love me."
Hmm.
And this pregnant mom was like very caring for this daughter even though it wasn't like her kid. Like she was just like having her motherly instincts probably kicked in and she like did everything she could to protect this little girl and she did a good job.
Yeah, yeah, they really seem to click.
And
Yeah.
like good supporting characters in this movie. Like I like the baseball like couple too. Like the young couple, I like them.
Oh yeah. And it was heartbreaking as well when I forget her name, but it's the young man's on the baseball team, and it's the woman who he's like. I think she's attracted to him first, but they're a couple as well, and where that rich jerk at the end like basically pushes her off, and she gets bitten to become a zombie. That was a
Yeah,
heartbreaking scene to me, where like then the kid breaks down. Um,
Yeah,
and
and
just
they,
accepts his fate.
yeah,
yeah,
he'd rather become a zombie with her than keep going and trying to
Yeah,
outrun him.
I think this movie had like a good amount of like small set pieces, like they said earlier with like um when they stopped at the first train station when the military came after them and they like closed the doors on them and they're like trying to keep it shut and you had like all those like baseball guys like have like their baseball bats to take out some zombies and then like they slowly like get overrun. It's like a lot of cool little moments in this movie, I think.
Yeah, that was a really interesting scene. When they were supposed to be going to that train station where the military was supposed to be there and escort them to safety, essentially. And then it turns out all of them were zombies.
oh, does it get any worse than that?
Yeah. Um, it was that. It was that. Yeah, that was just a good little twist. That wasn't like the big twist of the movie or anything, but it kind of kept the action going because they had to get back on the train, and they're moving across the country still. They can't stop because there's nowhere safe except moving on the train.
It shows you how quickly that virus like spreads because like his friend told him to like go a certain path that like all my people will take care of you. And then like literally the whole area is infected by the time he gets there. And then like another like interesting part that I remember was like when they're on the train and they're seeing like news footage and it's just like fucking zombies like falling from the sky. Do you remember this part where like I think like how I thought it was. First, I thought it was like, oh, this is the government that's doing it, and they're just dropping infected people in areas, is how I first took it. But then I was like, no, I don't think it's that. I think it's zombies that like attacked this helicopter that was about to take off, and then they're just like falling off the helicopter as it goes further along. But it was like an interesting like shot that like I don't think I've really seen that before. You guys have anything else to add?
Yeah, I had a question. It was a question I was going to pose to you guys, and it deals with the horror significance that essentially in a zombie film, um, what they represent is, the human without the soul. It allows you to kind of look at something that is human, but it's not human, and it's like a walking corpse. It literally is like a walking corpse, and allows you to kind of look at your own mortality, look at your own actions, and a lot of the time that is juxtapositioned with like social class. That was done in Night of the Living Dead for sure, um, where there was like that internal microcosm of society, and how they dealt with each other while all of these hordes of people um, sort of came upon the house. And you have that here. I'm not as fluent or well versed in Korean culture. I just did some light research, and they were saying this was a very poignant film looking at like the social class of that time for Korea, putting all of those different characters on the train together, like the rich elite hedge fund manager. You had the couple that was the better parents, but they weren't. They're more middle class. The elderly, being kind of on the outskirts of a changing society. The young high school group, and what they're going to bring to the future, and his daughter as well. And so it kind of wanted to take a moment to reflect on, I guess, Korean culture and class, and also then the where they were positioned on the train. Like you moved from the bottom to the top, and at the very top was a lot of the people who had power, and they were locking people out of doors and wouldn't let them in, for their own safety. So it was meant to kind of represent sort of that societal struggle as well, with the use of zombies in Train to Busan.
Mm-hmm.
That's very deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, Night of the Living Dead did that as well. In this, what, 50 years prior, I think. And I wanted to ask you, Lindsay, have you seen Night of the Living Dead, the original one, with was it 67? Question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have not.
It's great. It's great. Movie.
Okay.
Is that George Romero?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
R.I.P.
Well, I hate to spoil anything, so I'll throw spoiler alerts out there for this movie and Night of the Living Dead. But Pete, maybe you can relate to this with me on when this movie is ending and you see the pregnant woman and then the young girl are walking through the tunnel towards a military base, and the sniper's pointed at them, as Lindsay said, and you kind of have this moment where you're, oh my gosh, after all of this, are they going to shoot and kill these two young people? And in the end, they don't. And that is, I don't know if it was a direct reference to Night of the Living Dead, which kind of ends in a similar way, but instead of the person living, they are actually shot. It's the opposite. In Night of the Living Dead, the main character who survived the night is shot by the authorities and killed. So, Pete, did you get that vibe, or I guess that maybe they were going to pull the trigger because you'd seen it before?
I definitely didn't make the connection of it being similar to Night of the Dead. That didn't even come across my mind, but I definitely thought like they were gonna kill at least the mom. I didn't think they were gonna kill the kid, because I know usually it's like faux pas to kill a kid in a movie, but sometimes they like do it. But I honestly thought that the pregnant wife was gonna get shot, and then the soldiers would have realized, they're like, oh fuck, we messed up, like they're fine. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Does anybody have anything else to add before we maybe go into trivia or box office or anything like that? Lindsay, I'm always down for trivia. I'm always up for some trivia. Train to Busan.
Always. Alright, so as usual, I found these tidbits per IMDb. So, this first one, I did find a couple conflicting sources about this, but the main takeaway here, I can't honestly remember myself. But for a movie that is about zombies taking over, the word zombie is only said once, or twice, depending on the source you listen to, or if you can remember yourself. But throughout the entire movie, it's only once. So, I think that's kind of cool how they don't go for overkill. They trust that we as the audience can get it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And it was also the first South Korean zombie apocalypse action thriller, ever, I guess. And then third,
Really? I just said really.
You said
I didn't know that. I thought
He said
I
really.
feel like they would have had one, but
Right, that's...
Yeah, apparently not.
That's what I thought you said.
And then third, I just found that the director of Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright, called it the best zombie movie I've seen in forever. So this was the first live action movie for the director of Train to Busan. He was doing animation movies prior to that, and for a first live action movie, it was a really big hit in South Korea, and it ended up being the 6th highest grossing movie in South Korea, domestically. Yeah, so this movie seems like it was very successful.
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
That makes sense why it I feel like only a few South Korean horror movies make buzz in America, and I feel like this was one of them, especially amongst horror fans, because it did so well in South Korea.
But yeah, that's what I got for trivia this time.
Well, thank you
Sorry.
for that.
What?
Oh, I said, well, thank you for that. I didn't know any of those about the movie. But it was a very high grossing movie in Korea. Did it spawn any sequels or anything? I don't know of any.
Let me see.
I can't think of anything.
I thought it did, but oh no, it's just people wanting more.
It looks like there was an animated prequel called Soul Station that was directed less than a month after the movie came out, so they had a prequel set up.
You guys, hold the phone.
Huh.
We got a Train to Busan 2 coming this year.
Okay.
In August in France. I am so serious.
So it's
2.
called
Yeah.
it's called Train to Busan 2, and it takes place in France.
I mean, I don't know. It just has France in parentheses next to August 12th, 2020. So I guess it's premiering in France that day. Okay, that would make sense.
Oh, that's probably that's what that means.
Okay.
Are they gonna premiere it
called...
at Cannes?
Wow.
Cannes? What the fuck
might.
it's called? I can never pronounce it right.
Yeah, it's called Peninsula.
Yes, working
They
title.
might do that.
Weird.
I guess James Wan is also going to do an American remake of this movie too. Yeah, do we need to do that?
That's annoying.
Just
I like
Yeah.
I like him, but I hate when we do that. That trend should be dead. It's
Well, there you have it.
we live in such a global world now with the internet that it's not like I'm not gonna see a South Korean movie. Like if I want to see it, I'm gonna find it, or it's gonna come to America. So you don't have to remake a movie with an American studio and an American cast. I'll watch it in whatever culture made the film.
Yeah, they just think that we're not going to watch it because it's not in English. That's what they think.
I saw Parasite, and I don't know Korean.
I mean, probably stereotypically that's true. Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
It was great. I think, like, they think stereotypically Americans don't do that.
And that's probably true.
And that might be true. I don't know. Yeah, it's stupid, though. People should watch foreign films.
And I hope with, like, Parasite winning Best Picture, there's, like, that's maybe, like, I don't know, we're getting past the hump of that, where, that's usually an American movie. American movie always wins that. It's like American films, where now, no, the best movie is a Korean movie, and everybody went and saw a non-English speaking film and loved it. So you don't have to be in your own tongue or be in English. Maybe we're hopefully getting past that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Defend or destroy? Who wants to start off?
I'll start. I'll make it short and sweet. I defend Train to Busan. I enjoyed it. I had never seen it. I had heard of it. A lot of my friends had seen it, recommended it, and I finally, sat down and watched it for the first time here for the podcast. And it's a lot of action. It's nonstop. I thought it was entertaining. The zombies looked really interesting. It was not a huge departure in the terms of the zombie genre, but it was subtle enough that it was a little different, and it was fun. It was entertaining. The relationships among all the characters I thought was great. All the acting was great, where I felt attached to everybody's kind of subplot, and it didn't drag on. It started quick, it went fast, and then it ended, and there was a lot of emotion to it all the way through. And I thought Train to Busan was really fun to defend.
I give this movie a D for defend. Because this movie, yeah, I mean, pretty much echoing what you said, Matt. It's just like an all-around, like, just a good time. It's really, it's really entertaining. Just like how fast-paced it is. And then, like, they keep you, and you're still hooked with these characters. They still manage to, like, develop these characters even though the movie's moving so fast. And I could, like, respect that. That, they thought out some characters. Like, there's some surface-level characters, but, like, they're not along for, like, a really long time. So, like, they do a lot of things well. And you could just have to, like, commend the director for being able to do that for his first fucking live-action movie. Like, that's ridiculous. That's it.
So, this movie is going to be a unanimous defend, then. Because I also really thought it was very well acted. Really, I thought everybody did great, but especially a shout out to that younger actress. I just thought she killed it and really delivered, especially in that, emotion, as Matt said, throughout the movie. Like when you really feel for these characters and you care about them and what happens to them. Thought the effects were really good. There was a lot of gore, but I don't think it was, like, too much. And then, going back to what I said before with that whole family arc, I was really bummed out about it, like, by the end. But it did help in making the viewer feel very sympathetic toward their situation and how things end. So it's going to be a defend for me.
All right. Well, I guess it's a unanimous defend from It Records podcast for Train to Busan. You can watch it on Netflix. I think it's on Amazon Prime or Amazon Video if you have that, but it's available for viewing. And check it out, especially now that we know this second one is going to be released. So if you want to check out the second one while it's still hot, definitely check out Train to Busan. It's a fun movie, that's for sure. But until next time, get at us on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, write a review on wherever you listen to podcasts, really Apple. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you guys and what maybe you'd like for us to do. I will give a shout out, a preview, if you will. The next... Nope, I'm not going to do it. I'll cut this out. But actually, until next time, that is all I have. I am Matt Johnson, and I remain in the shadows.
I'm Peter, and I'm making a request from Matt for you to play the little girl singing that song.
I'm Lindsay, and I agree.
While we're talking right now.
I can do that.